a trading book that revolutionized my approach. In the huge list of trading books, only a few have really resonated with me as profoundly as Evidence-Based Technical Analysis by David Austin. It fundamentally transformed the way I perceive trading and, more importantly, how I effectively evaluate and implement trading ideas and strategies. To save you from reading the 500 plus pages, here's 4 takeaways on how to create profitable strategies using everything I've learned from this book. I'm Unbiased Trading, and let's get straight into this. The first one is eliminating subjective analysis and embracing evidence-based reasoning. So Austin astutely highlights the pitfalls of subjective analysis, which often relies on vague concepts and personal intuition. He argues that such approaches lead to meaningless claims that give the illusion of conveying cognitive content. Instead, he advocates for objective analysis, where trading ideas can be rigorously defined, tested, and validated. Now, this is a key thing I think that's in my message on Twitter and with these YouTube videos. However, I will say I do understand the side of things where if you have 10 years of experience and you've been trading, profoundly well over those, at least last like 5 years or so, or even if I guess you just have 10 years of experience, there's a lot of things and nuances that you may know that can be hard to convey through code or through data. And those things you can take advantage of. Those are your personal kind of advantages based on your intuition that you've gained over those 10 years. Whereas I think David Austin doesn't really mention along the lines of those things. And I still think discretionary input can be really valuable, but it depends on where you are in your stage and also how much it increases your performance. It is a bit of an opportunity cost. Let's say your intuition helps you get a 20% extra return, and let's say the baseline here is you're somehow returning 100% on your capital. Maybe you have a small account, for example. If you were getting that extra 20%, realistically, you're opening yourself up to potential, bigger losses because you're trading discretionary. It's not fully systematic, which means that there's going to be sometimes overlap there where you're going to have biases come in with your discretionary trading and cause bigger losses. It'll also say that maybe your performance isn't as good. It opens up to the areas where your execution could be harmed due to you having that discretionary input. And, 20% isn't a huge margin increase where being, fully systematic could actually be better for you, at least on the risk perspective side of things. But if, for example, your discretionary trading was adding an extra 100% return, then that's obviously, a blow out of the water. And you can see that definitely adds value or way more value adding that discretionary input. Also, it depends on time, many other factors there. But I think I just wanted to touch upon that point because in the book, he doesn't touch upon it really as much as I think he really should have. Next is navigating biases. Now, while Austin criticizes subjective methods, he acknowledges that even objective approaches are not immune to biases. He meticulously dissects various forms of biases that can distort analytical conclusions. A couple to mention are selection bias. So this can occur when a trader selects a backtest. When he's backtesting so many ideas, he will almost always come across at least one good one, whether that's by doing many iterations or just by doing so many ideas. And it can be quite easy to get fooled by that random fluke of finding that one good backtest. And that's why robustness testing and more rigorous testing, as we come across into this book, is really useful because that selection bias can be very it can very harm results. You may just be picking flukes, for example. There's also other variations of selection bias, but I thought that was one I kind of wanted to touch on. Next is the look-ahead bias. This is very common. So this occurs when using information or data in a study or in a backtest that would have not been known to the available backtesting or trade during that time it's being analyzed. So a really classic one of this for look-ahead bias is people will go, hey, I'm going to build a really amazing bull or trend following strategy for Tesla. And I'm going to focus on those days where it has a really big gap ups. And the reason you're creating that strategy is because you have seen historically on that chart that when it gets up, it normally continues through. And that is a form of look ahead bias, as obviously that strategy is going to perform very well. Now there's different ways of navigating around there. I think you could argue to some extent, well, if that's a really good observation, that could be a really good strategy. And I definitely agree there are like biases to it on both sides. But most of the time it comes down to, at least for me, sample size on that kind of side of things. Whereas if you're, for example, that Tesla strategy, you only have 18 samples, realistically, you don't really have enough there to say that's statistically significant. But if it happened 1,000 times, then yeah, 100%, even if it's an observation, I'd say that potentially that could be a really good strategy. That's at least what comes down to me. I'm not perfect in my backtesting. I strive for as much as perfection as I can get and as much to really good statistical methods to use. But as with trading, there is never kind of like the perfect or certainty in anything. And he goes on to mention other ones such as optimism bias and so on. By recognizing these biases, we can take steps to mitigate their impact on trading strategies. And I think biases are one of the biggest things that ignorance doesn't allow you to obviously know when you're going into backtesting and being systematic. So kind of showcasing some of these biases to you earlier on, you will notice many times where you've maybe encountered them before or you're potentially doing them currently. Next is the significance of sample size. Now, when evaluating the efficiency of a trading strategy, sample size plays a crucial role. Austin emphasizes the concept of statistical significance, which gauges whether the results of a trading strategy are statistically robust and not just a product of chance. He delves into the various factors that influence sample size, ultimately advocating for a significant number of out-of-sample trades to ensure the strategy's generalizability improves its odds of working on live data. And this is a big thing I've taken into my trading. I try and focus on sample size a huge ton, and it's a big opportunity cost thing I will take into effect if I'm comparing different strategies. So for example, let's say I had two strategies. They both gave me 50% return, but one of them had 1,000 samples and one of them had 10. I would by far always pick the 1,000 samples, just as a very easy kind of like example there. But he goes into it even more detail, and I think this is, if you read this book, or at least this portion of the book, I think you'll understand a lot of my content better as well, of why I mentioned the importance of sample size. Next is rigorous testing. So the allures of data mining, so that's just searching for patterns in historical data to identify profitable trading signals, can be very deceiving. Austin warns against the pitfalls of overfitting, where a strategy appears to be solely profitable due to a perfect fit on historical data, but performs very poorly when applied to new data or live data. To combat this, he advocates for rigorous testing methodologies, which most of the time, these are the ones I do as well. I think he goes into even more detail where I've personally never really done a white reality check, which I'll touch on in a second. But the main ones he talks about is out-of-sample testing, randomization. So this is randomizing the order of historical data to prevent the strategy from cherry-picking favorable periods. Also, this is a version of Monte Carlo simulations. And then he goes into a lot of detail on the white reality check, which I think is created by a PhD mathematician. I might be incorrect there. If memory serves me right, I think that's where it came from. But that's a very good test as well. Personally, I don't use it as much. Most of the time for me, it's Monte Carlo's out-of-sample testing, parameter sensitivity testing. Normally, those are the ones I focus on the most. And then also he goes over penalizing strategy metrics. So incorporating risk-adjusted metrics that penalize strategies for excessive drawdowns or poor risk management are really other good things he touches on. And also some other performance metrics that you should kind of pay attention to that aren't the standard just profit and loss. And to be honest, this is probably my favorite part of the book is about the testing side of things. Now, these were the 4 insights I really got from this book. The insights and methodologies presented in evidence-based technical analysis have been instrumental in my development of algorithmic trading strategies. While I may not agree with everything he says in this book, it emphasizes the importance of evidence-based reasoning, rigorous testing, and bias awareness, has unquestionably shaped my approach to trading, and is probably one of the core books I always refer back to when I'm talking on different topics. He's also done a couple other less well-known books, but I will say a lot of his books are a tough read. They will take you a bit of time to kind of go through, and realistically, it may take you 2 reads to fully understand anything. At least that was for me. But I really do recommend picking up this book if you are interested into systematic trading. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed it, please like and share it with anyone else who might be interested.